Hello, hello, everyone. It is time for another week of Monday Money Talks live. And I'm super psyched this week. I have Milena Regos on, and I can't even remember. I think we just met through chatting on LinkedIn, and then we got on a Zoom, and I said, you got to come hang out with my community because she is the founder of the Unhustle Movement. This is really cool. She has a very successful speaking platform and talks to people about how to remove the hustle. And I want to like dive deep into this because I think it's such a fun conversation, especially for my brand being NFA, no fucking around. And your brand is the Unhustle Movement. And, I remember when we were talking, it's like, well, those do not contradict each other. It's like, for me, I talk to people a lot about making money through doing what they love, and it doesn't feel like a hustle and it doesn't feel like stress. And so I can't wait to deep dive with you today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Let's do it. Let's
dive
deep. I want to learn from you.
Totally. Yeah. Tell me. I mean, I know that actually, I always like to start with a quote. What's a quote that you live by?
What's a quote that I live by? I've always admired Richard Branson. He's definitely been a business hero for me for a really long time. Uh-huh. And the quote that I love by him is he says, "I don't think of work as work and play as play. It's all living."
Ooh, that is a good one. Yes, absolutely. I mean, the cool thing about that is when you do what you love, it just feels like vacation every day and it's playing. And I think that concept, the word work, like I've often thought, when you're doing what you love, you need to rethink that word because you're not, it doesn't feel the same as this drudgerous kind of hustle grind type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, when you have passion and you have purpose, like Elon Musk, he puts in 80 hours a week. But at the same time, he's so driven, he's trying to make Mars livable, which is a really, really big purpose. So yeah, he works a lot of hours, but at the same time, he also values his sleep too. So he knows he needs to show up and be fully on so he can be so creative and innovative. But at the same time, it drives him, it gives him energy.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want to know how you came up with the Unhustle movement. And I know you have a huge following now, and you speak in a lot of different venues. I don't think it gets put on this bio, but when I was reading your background, I'm like, damn, she's a powerhouse. And and I love it. And I think a lot of people are wanting this right now. They're like, I'm tired of grinding. I'm tired of pushing. I want to feel more ease and flow and relaxation. So will you share how you got into that, how you founded that? And then also what are the philosophies behind Unhustle to you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll try to keep it to a minimum because obviously there's a lot behind that story as I'm working on my book and I'm just really deep into that story and trying to keep it simple. So I'm an overachiever. And I came to the US from Bulgaria, first generation immigrant.
Uh-huh.
And I went full on with the American dream and, work all the time. I wanted to build my marketing career. I built a very successful marketing career, started a digital marketing agency. And I worked with some celebrities. I worked with like Madonna and Steve Nash and Dr. Weil and some really, really good brands in the wellness area, a lot of them. So that was actually really a good alignment with my values for health and wellness. But at the same time, I was working way too many hours. I was managing a team. I was making decent money, but I didn't feel like I was, making millions. So I ended up losing my passion a little bit for the work that I was doing because, to be honest with you, if all you do is work, if you just have that single-minded focus of work, and you put everything else on the back burner, which is what I did, I lost my friends. My health started to suffer. My relationship with my husband, I was never really present because I was constantly on some social media channel in some country. And so all of this added up, and I started to lose my passion. And I love marketing. I still love it. I'm very intrigued by it, and but I kind of got burned out, and that led me to rethink my life, rethink my priorities, rethink my values, shift my perspective, and connect with a much, much deeper purpose, which is Unhustle. Why? Because I do believe that the advice that a lot of entrepreneurs receive, that we need to be constantly working, going all in, always on, never taking time off. I think it's the worst possible advice that can be given to entrepreneurs from a perspective of well-being, perspective of creativity, productivity,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
potential, really, because when we're constantly 24/7 always on, we actually leave very little time to be creative, which is where our superpowers lie, which is where our difference is, and which is where our authentic power comes in, so that we can actually create something beautiful in the world that gives us the money to have a lifestyle we want to have, but with joy and with ease and with flow.
Yeah, I love all the words you're using. It's like so what I talk about and think about an experience. And when you opened with I'm an overachiever, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure like a lot of entrepreneurs could raise their hands there. I mean, so much. It's similar to me, and really over the years, as I learned the dynamics of manifestation and going, oh, it's a lot easier to attract money than to push your way to try to make more. And not that you're not doing things to attract money to you, but it's just it is a really interesting thing to constantly feel like you've got to be on all the time. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And when we fall prey for that cult of busyness, and we fall prey for the comparisons, and we fall prey for our scarcity mindset. And what am I? How come they? And we measure our progress based on what somebody else is defining progress. So when we want to talk about success, especially for entrepreneurs, a lot of time that ends up in some kind of material compensation. Where I look at it is like, well, I want to be successful in all aspects of my life, not just one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Money is one of
Absolutely.
them. Money's huge. Money allows you to live your purpose and be powerful and have a lifestyle. But at the same time, if all you do is focus on money, you're cutting yourself short.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you find the
Absolutely.
same?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's really interesting because, my company's name is NFA Money, and the outcome is people want to make more money. But then I go, if you want to make more money, how are you going to do it in a way that's genuine wealth, where you look at the holistic picture of how you spend your life energy, and then the money comes. So if you're feeling relaxed and you're enjoying what you're doing and you're sharing your creative gifts with the world, you're more magnetic to money, and it makes the process. And I always say joy and ease is the goal. It's like, how can we make it joyful and easy? And then when you're in that vibrational frequency, you actually have a much easier time attracting what you want your way. And it just feels different. You might be working the same number of hours sometimes, but it feels different.
So why is this so hard for us to understand? I mean, how do you help people shift their perspectives?
Right. I want to know for you, do you do mostly speaking on the Unhustle Movement, or do you do coaching? Like, tell me all the different things you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm working on my book right now. I know you and I talked about the speaking engagement I have coming up, which is great. At the same time, I'm launching a community for Unhustle, which is going to become the main thing, because I want to change the world. I want this to turn into a movement, and so I want to give easy access for people to get into and connect with like-minded people, and at the same time collectively change that bias we have against that hustle mentality. So I'm working on the community. This will launch really soon. But yeah, I'm doing individual coaching at the same time, executive coaching with some leaders and CEOs. I'm currently just finishing next week. I have like a 7-week live training program, which I call Unhustle Mastery. But at the same time, we know that there is no such thing as mastery. So there's got to be continuation of doing the practices. And that's why I launched the community, because I do see a need for people to connect with each other. And I also know a lot of people are very passionate about the same topic. A lot of people are on the same page. And I constantly get people saying they want to help, they want to get involved. So I'm going to open this community to people, because I don't want all of this to flow through me. I want to open it to the world, because a lot of people from other countries are reaching out to me. It's not just an American thing, this whole hustle culture. Sometimes we think it's just an American thing, but it's not. It's all over the world.
Yeah.
So the community will become the main.
Okay. And will it be a Facebook community, or
no
on your own platform?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get people out of Facebook, because the reason I want to get them out of Facebook is because I want to give them a home where we can have everything together. And it's also more of a of our own space. I feel like sometimes people don't feel very safe, or they don't want to go on Facebook. And so this will be outside of Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Wonderful. That sounds amazing. What would you say are the primary fundamental kind of organizing principles of the Unhustle movement, and people who align with that way of thinking? What is it that they're striving for in the Unhustle mentality?
I think the Unhustle mentality is more about getting clear on your values, designing a life that's based on your values instead of your ego, instead of managing time, managing energy.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of looking at one day I'll retire, look at, can I take some mini retirements along the way?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of focusing on just material stuff and focusing on success symbols the way we know it through titles and material and money, focus on success that drives you long term.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
It's a way of being.
it's a
Very
way of
different.
being.
Yeah.
It's a new way of living, thinking, working, and being, as
Yeah.
opposed to the old mentality, which, to be honest with you, it started back in the 18th century with the Industrial Revolution, right? Henry Ford decided that we have to work 8 hours a day because he wanted to have 3 shifts in the factory and optimize his machines, as
Yeah.
well as give people more leisure time so they can have the options to purchase his cars and go on trips. So it was very actually business driven with the 8-hour work day. And all of a sudden, we're in the information age, and we all the research and data says that we can push our brains to be very focused and very creative for 3 to 5 hours a day. Why do we think then we can do it for 16 hours a day?
Yeah.
It's not humanly possible, right? So
Yeah.
I'm calling it the Unhustle Revolution following the Industrial Revolution.
That's great. I love it. It is very interesting when you look at the historical roots of how movements get created, or just ways of thinking and entire paradigms that we then follow for a long time, sometimes without thinking, is this good for us? Do we enjoy this? How does this actually feel? What's our quality of life?
Right.
Important questions.
And at the same time, looking at downtime as a productive form of being, as opposed to, downtime is taking away from my work. Because so many of us, especially entrepreneurs, we're so driven by what we want to do, right? We're definitely type A, go, go, go. I'm going to change the world. I know, I get it. I have to remind myself every single day, like, okay, I also have to take care of myself, right? I'm by no means perfect. I get stressed out. I push my workout in the back burner. I definitely get it. And the question is, do you have the awareness? And then once you have the tools, can you tap into these tools before it turns too late? Because in my opinion, burnout prevention is so much better than burnout cure, right? And there's a lot of talk about burnout right now. And is it personal responsibility? Is it the organizational responsibility? Whose responsibility it falls on? I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because if you have teams, because I used to have a team and used to expect from them the same thing I was putting myself to. I used to expect from them to respond to me at 11 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's not really why. I mean, I don't own their life.
Yeah. Well, and you're going to be the model of your organization. So however you run it, your team's going to be a reflection of that, and boundaries are important, and time. Something that has really changed for me over the years is that piece of going, okay, what is the goal of money making? And what is the goal of life in general? And every time I ask people those questions, they always will say in the practical sense, they want to make more money in their business. Why do they want to make more money in their business? To have more free time. But it's not even necessarily like free time, meaning you're sitting on the couch doing nothing. It's freedom of choice of what you do with your time. And something, I don't know if, I'm sure you notice this in the people that you talk to and work with, I always tell them the be, do, have model, because in the overachiever model, it's like push to get to some goal point that you think all of a sudden you're going to feel great, and you get there and you're like, if you have this issue, that's it. And then you just keep pushing to the next goal. And then you never slow down and stop and enjoy the fruits of your labor. And it just keeps going and going and going. It's like, I think of the rat race and how we talk about that. I always call it the treadmill of BS. It's like, how do you get off the treadmill of BS? Because it doesn't feel good. You can only maintain that for a certain number of, some people can do it for years and years and years. And I think some people do it for their whole life, but it doesn't feel very good. So it's learning how to be in the moment and present. So I'm curious, what are some of the tools you teach people to help them unhustle?
You're literally telling me the first chapter of the book. It's so funny because I was working on it this morning, and it was exactly that realization. I was at the official grand opening for Madonna's Club in Toronto, and I thought I had, I came to chase the American dream, and I was living it. I was successful. I had my little sporty car, I had fancy clothes, and I had my little house in Lake Tahoe, and I was very unfulfilled on the inside because you're always chasing something, right? So what shifted my perspective and what I do with people is going from outward chasing to inner reflection. Obviously I graduated from the Human Potential Institute.
Awesome.
And so I had a mindfulness-based stress reduction training program in it. So mindfulness became all of a sudden a way of life for me. I started to meditate. I started to spend a lot more time in nature, which is, if you're familiar with forest bathing, forest medicine. So I just, I went to live in Mexico for 4 months out of the year and lived in an Airstream, and was able to sync my circadian rhythms back because I was walking barefoot, and I was disconnected from technology. I was going to a coffee shop where I would work, and then I had to disconnect, and I would go play in the ocean and kite surf. And I was either fully on or I was fully off. And for some reason, when we especially working from home, that is so hard to accomplish because we're constantly connected. But if you think about it, it was the only really time that I had to fully focus because I had certain amount of hours with very slow internet. And I was like, okay, what are the most important things I have to get done today because I have limited amount of limited bandwidth. What do I need to focus on? So these are some of the things I work with my clients, like priorities, boundaries, taking time, whether you meditate or you do mindfulness or you just have more of a slowing down, intentional way of going through your days. Obviously, the taking care of yourself, sleeping and breathing and eating and all of these things. Like I teach them biohacks and monk hacks, all these things. But
you said biohacks and what hacks?
And monk hacks.
Monk hacks. Oh, say more. I want to hear about this. Sounds cool.
Well, because hacks are so such a popular term, especially in the biohacking world, which is what I got certified from. And to be honest with you, there are no magic pills. There are no hacks. The only hacks is you, and you have to do the work. You can't. I mean, somebody may think that you can gain the meditation techniques of somebody who's been doing meditation for 40 years. You still have to meditate. We're looking for that magic pill, but our human brain can only fit in so much. So living from a perspective of, respecting your boundaries and respecting who you are as a human, and realizing that your human potential is so much more than your ability to hustle, is such a different way of looking at things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you said so many amazing things in there. Meditation changed my world, like big time. It's because of that. Exactly what you're talking about is like that hustle mentality and the like grinding. This is going to sound so weird, and it's an interesting story to share, but I did, for my dissertation research, I interviewed incarcerated men. I did life history interviews with them, and the majority of them spent several years in solitary confinement. And I remember I was driving home one day from an interview, and I was like, this is going to sound nuts, but I was so stressed out and so overworked and so overwhelmed. I had 3 kids. I was in grad school doing a dissertation on food stamps. Like my life was pretty hard. And I remember thinking, I wish I could go to solitary confinement.
It doesn't sound strange at all to me. I totally get it.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
Wow, because that's not a good thought.
No, but that's what it comes down to. At some point, you're so done.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what I remember thinking when I first went to Baja. And I was so overwhelmed, same thing, right? So stressed out. And I was thinking, what do I do? Do I keep going with the digital marketing agency? Do I go to freelancing? What do I do? At some point in time, we found this ping pong table in this bar. And I remember just hanging out with my husband there playing ping pong. And I was like, I really don't care anymore what happens.
Yeah.
If I can just do this for the rest of my life, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
totally get it. No, it doesn't sound
Yeah.
strange to me at all because
It's such a wake up call where you're like, whoa, something's off. This is not, like I get to create my reality however I want. Why am I creating it this way?
right. Why do I
You
want to
know?
go to prison? Yeah.
Exactly. And so, yeah, and at the time there were a lot of things that made it challenging to shift then, but knowing now what I know, and that to me, overworking is a habit. Everything in
Sure.
our life is just a habit. And so we get addicted. I've called it the stress set point, is how I talk to my people about it. As I go, we all have a stress set point, just like we have a money set point, where we kind of get to the level and we ride that, and it's our comfort zone. And then if something changes, like let's say you take a whole bunch of stuff off your plate and you're starting to feel relaxed and good, if you're not used to it, you'll do something to go back to the stress set point, because you're like,
Exactly.
oh, it's comfortable. It's where I know how to live and operate. Like, people don't know how to feel good and be relaxed. And so it's really important, whoever's ever gets to watch this in the future or right now, it's really important to remember to just start to take slow steps and you just do 2 minutes of meditation. Start to ask yourself, am I waking up and feeling good? If you're having thoughts like I was having, like, oh, I need to go to solitary confinement to get a few minutes of time and space and downtime, like something's off, and just go, oh, okay, like where am I going to start? And then start practicing. Because I don't think it happens overnight to where all of a sudden you go from a high achieving like person who maxes your schedule to all of a sudden you're like relaxed and easygoing. And the hard part of that is you will have a breakdown of some sort if you don't do it yourself. If you don't mindfully, consciously choose to go, I need to change my habits here.
No, you're absolutely so right about all of this. So the question then becomes, why are we not comfortable with being alone with our thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great
What
question.
are we running away from?
Yeah.
Who are you without the doing?
Yeah.
Because if we're choosing work and checking off to-do lists, then having a difficult conversation with your partner, are you running away from something and filling your time with just tasks because you're getting dopamine hit every time you check off that task? So then are you not getting the dopamine hits when you're not working?
Yeah.
Which is where the active recovery comes very important. This is where a lot of successful people, that's why you see them climbing mountains and sailing across oceans. That's why Richard Branson is my hero, because the guy goes full on and everything he does, right? Because he from a flow perspective, when you challenge the skill ratio is not there. So let's say you want to recover, you want to chill, but you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix. There's not a lot of challenge in there. But if all of a sudden you say, I'm going to learn how to rock climb and climb a mountain, that's going to become just as addictive as work. But you're replacing, because from a neuroscience perspective, you need to make sure your brain's doing the same thing that you're getting out of from work, which is a lot of dopamine, right? A lot of adrenaline. So, but if you replace that in your time off, it's going to be slightly easier to switch from on to off.
Yeah.
And the off time, when you get that flow in that off time, it's actually going to be easier to then introduce that flow back into your work life, because flow follows flow. So if you're just building flow wherever you go and whatever you do, it gets easier and easier to maintain that flow throughout your work day. But for some weird reason, we think of like you're either working or you're just kicking and chilling, which is fine and it's needed. But at the same time, what's missing from your life that you're so addicted to work? And granted, it's an addiction. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so, just like you, mindfulness changed my life. I mean, it was like somebody flipped a switch in my brain, and I've never been the same. I meditate, but I also introduce mindfulness throughout my days.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Amazing. I love that you bring up forest bathing and things like that. Like, I do trail running for that reason. Like, I go into the forest and it's so healing and lovely and wonderful. And I used to push really hard when I'd run. And now I go and I'm like, how does it feel good to run? How does it feel? And then I'll stop and meditate, and then I'll take pictures of the trees, and then I'll like see some rock. It's like, it's fun instead of like push all the time. Because you can even go into nature and be, I think it's less likely, because just the essence of nature causes you to slow down and reflect differently. But it's just, it's wild, that mentality that habit toward that of like, I've got to always be on. I think it's really interesting what you said about the dopamine, because I think we can get addicted to that hit. And when we don't have it, we want to create ways to get it. And so it's, I mean, there are essential neurochemicals that we need, but it's also like, I think we can get in an overdrive state and seek that out. Do you notice that with people that you're working with? Yeah.
What you just mentioned about running, right? Because from the overachiever perspective, you run because you get the exact same chemicals in your brain, right? And what I used to do is get up at 6 a.m. and go hit the gym and have this really big hardcore workout. At the same time, I had adrenal fatigue a little bit because my cortisol was running through my veins like crazy.
Yeah.
So we think, because it feels momentarily you have that stress relief. So we think that if you go and have a really hardcore workout, you're going to feel better. And you do, but it's momentary because you're still taxing your adrenal fatigue. The hardest thing I had to switch around, especially for like go-getters, high overachievers, type A people, is to slow down my workouts. Because that's when I realized that I'm starting to introduce a little bit of balance. That's why I have a program called the Unhustle Morning. And in it, I talk about like 10 minutes of just really slow movement in the morning, just so you can get your blood moving, so you can focus on work while your brain's still, in the right brain waves for like that creative work. But at the same time, doing your workout later in the day. But you were talking about running into the forest. So I switched that around to just walking through the forest.
Yeah.
And just getting recharged from it, and I would be so exhausted just walking really slow. I'll be more tired walking slower than running through, because your body is in a whole different state. So taking a look at your workouts is one thing you can do, because if you're constantly all the time like hardcore, your body doesn't, and your mind doesn't have a time to slow down. Then the only time you're really slowing down is when you're falling asleep.
I think it's fascinating that you're saying this, because I'm just noticing the pattern from my history where I go, wow, interesting that when I started meditating, I didn't want to run as much. It was more like, I want to hike in the forest. I want to run slowly. Like it changed that drive. And I think you're right. It was that addiction to like go, 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 go all the time. And it does lead to burnout. We know this with so many people. I see it all the time. And I think that people, these are great insights that you're having. I can't wait. What's your book going to be called?
Unhustle.
Unhustle. Awesome. Great.
Unhustle. The counterintuitive but science-backed approach to a new way of living and working is the subtitle that I'm playing around with. I haven't decided 100%. But I want to share my story, but I also want to share a story from other people, like yourself, who have gone down the same path. And I don't want to write a how-to book necessarily. I want to have some practices and exercises for people, but I want to write it from a perspective of storytelling, because it's a little more convincing, I think, than just me what works for me may not work for you. We have different approaches to life. The one thing that unites us is our biology, right? So if as long as you're grounded in biology and science, then obviously that's a good way to approach it from. So I keep getting back to like neuroscience and the science of flow and the science of well-being, because just me telling you what's worked for me, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. Very few people are going to disconnect and go live in Baja for 4 months. I don't expect everybody to do that, but there's small things. I'll have these Unhustle mini playbooks that you can incorporate, so that you can make some small changes.
Yeah. It's great stuff. I always like to ask guests, because, talking about money and Unhustle and the coupling of that, I'm curious for you, and I probably already know the answer, but I'm so curious what you're going to say. Like, what would you say have been, I'll preface it with this versus that. I think that our money making is very tied to our overachieving. Like any money blocks that we have are going to be tied to the way that we have drive in the world, and the way we think about making money, and fear of missing out, and all these different things. So I'm curious for you, what have you noticed, what's a money block that you've worked through to get where you are right now in your life and business?
That's a great question, Amanda. I mean, so many, right? Just like every entrepreneur, anything from imposter syndrome to I need to hustle to make a lot of money, to I shouldn't charge that much because I'm doing it for the purpose of changing people's lives, right?
Yep.
All of
Yep.
these that are showing up, right?
Yeah.
So all of them, I mean, just like everybody, mindset, especially when it comes to money, is so huge, which is why it's so valuable of what you're doing, because we get, on one side, we tend to not value our worth and
Yep.
undercharge. We tend to compare ourselves to others and like, well, if they're charging that much, then we should charge that much. And then a lot of times we, I feel like we don't put enough value on the transformation that we get for people. What were you thinking I was going to say?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people, a lot of those things, they all ring true across the board. I created a Money Blocks profile to help people with those things because exactly like I see so many patterns of it and they say the exact same things. And it's like fascinating. I think a lot of people who hustle have this, they have a subconscious buy-in to that they got to work hard to make money.
Right.
And if they didn't work hard for it, they didn't earn it. And it's not worthy in the same way. And so I see that with a lot of people who are pushing really hard. They're like, okay, if I want to get to, 6, 7, 8, 9 figures, whatever they want to get to in their business, I got to hustle. Like that's the mentality.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Just something that just happened to me a few months back. I was working with Unhustle, and I was kind of like, I need to reach more people because it's a super powerful message. A lot of people really value it, but I'm not getting enough the word out. It was pandemic. Like I can help so many people right now, but I was looking at it more from a perspective of what I need, as opposed to what does the world need.
Yeah.
And then we were traveling to Baja, and we stayed in this campground, and there was a river flowing through, and I just said, I'm just gonna surrender. I'm just gonna let go, and I'll do something that the world needs. And I came up with this World Unhustle Day. It was December 28th or 29th. It was like last full moon of the year is when everybody, for centuries, going back to the Native Americans, have been like, it's a time for reflection and going in and thinking about the past year and your goals for the new year. So I launched this World Unhustle Day. No agenda behind it, not trying to make money by any means. But all of a sudden got picked up by so many, big names and influencers. And then people started dropping it. Somebody dropped it in a chat, in a LinkedIn chat with a whole bunch of really powerful people from like Google and the NFL. And I got invited to speak at the World Economic Forum as a result. And all of this was just me
doing
saying
what you love to help people.
What does the world need? Yeah. And doing it from a perspective of it's not all about the money.
Yeah.
And ended up just catapulting my business, into more speaking engagements and more business and all of that. So my point is sometimes we strive too hard, and sometimes you just gotta let go.
Yeah. I love this link because I often think about surrender versus control and how when we're in this control state, it pushes us to work hard because we're like, I got to control everything. I can't delegate and it's got to be me. Or if I delegate and there's just this like tie to exactly what you're talking about. Like I'm trying to control all the outcomes instead of just going, I surrender to what's the best and highest good for all and doing what makes me feel good. That includes that, it's like that piece of, we get so stuck in thinking how things should be. And it's a fascinating thing it feels very counterintuitive to go, I'm going to surrender and relax to get everything to work out. Because we think if I push and force, it'll work out.
Right. That was my thinking. I said, the message is extremely important. The timing is really critical. I'm just going to launch it out in the world and see if it sits with people. And hey, if it doesn't, maybe I'm wrong. And that was just my perspective. And it worked out. But it's so counterintuitive for us because, again, we want to control everything. Yeah. Which we know that we can't. So especially with what's going on these days, but we still try.
Yeah. So this is a great lead into my last question. I like to ask the same 3 questions and just see different answers. And one of them is what's your best money-making strategy in your business? Because this is geared toward entrepreneurs and focused on money making. I'm curious what you would say to that.
Yeah. Just ship it.
Ship it.
Ship it. Yeah, we sometimes hang on to things because we want them to be perfect, because we're not so sure, because we have imposter syndrome, and we hold ourselves back. We spend so much time in trying to get it perfect. But if you really want to make money, you also got to let the world know that you have something. For example,
Yeah.
my community, right? I've been wanting to launch my community for 2 years now. It's the right thing to do. It's been 2 years. It's time to ship it.
Yeah, it's a great one. I love that. I keep hearing this one over and over lately is imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. You know,
Exactly.
it's like it doesn't need to be perfect. One of my favorite mantras is screw perfection. Like I will literally, because I can be that way, like get very stuck on detail oriented
Mm-hmm.
BS,
Ship it, but ship it
and
as
that
long as
takes
it's sitting.
time, right? And then you end up on the
Yeah.
treadmill of BS because you're taking all this time doing things that really don't matter. It's like, screw it. It's good. It's good enough. Go.
Yeah, and you'll learn as you go. You can always perfect
Yeah.
it later, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as perfect. So whether it's the book, whether it's the community, whether it's a product you're launching, whether it's a software thing, I mean,
Yeah.
depending on what you're working on, just get it. I mean, look at Apple. They ship it before it's perfect, right?
Totally. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny to say because I go sometimes you look at the most successful people, they're definitely high producers and high producers where in my mind it's way less work and way less energetically draining to have that mentality of like let's have fun, let's play, let's perfection is a process, right? It's never all the way perfect anyway, and you've got to just start taking steps in that direction and play. I like to think about playful, easy, fun, flowing steps. Like what's fun for you?
Exactly.
Do
What's
that
fun?
right
Yeah, and
now.
make it fun. Make it fun. Make it a
Yeah.
game. Like I'm
Yeah.
playing with the community, with the landing page copy right now, and making it fun, making it a game, and
Yeah.
just going from there. Because if you're trying to, you know, put that like, oh, it's so much work. I don't know if I can get it done. I don't know if it's gonna be perfect. Then it shifts your energy around, and then
Totally.
that actually shows on everything you're doing, and then people can also sense that from a very energetic perspective, right?
Yeah.
And then you attract same of the same. So
Yeah.
make it easy, fun, and playful, and ship it.
Yeah. Ah, so many good, important conversations. I can't wait. When's
I
your
can
book?
talk to you forever.
I know, me too. I'm really enjoying it. I mean, you and I think so similarly, and I think that shared history of like high achieving and just feeling that sense of like I don't want to do it this way anymore. Like this isn't going to work long term. And surrender's been a huge thing for me. Like continue. I constantly do a meditation where all I say over and over is I'm willing to surrender. Like I'm willing to surrender and let go and trust what comes my way. It's like because I've been a real control person in my history and like trying to like make sure it all happens, and it would at the cost of me feeling relaxed and flowing and easygoing. And it's like my kids used to be like, you're always saying you, like they'd ask how I was and be like, I'm busy, like I'm super busy.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't want to say that's not how I want my life to be. So it's been fun to have the mantra of the less I work, the more I make. And just
Yeah.
like I don't and work in that idea of like, oh, I'm gonna relax on the weekends. And sometimes I take Fridays off and I schedule in downtime and I drink my tea in the morning and I meditate. It's like some days I work out and some days I'm like, it doesn't feel right today, which never would have been how I was in the past.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, exactly. Oh, good. So you're taking care of yourself, and
Yeah.
Very important thing for us who teach this kind of stuff is also to practice what we teach, because sometimes,
Totally.
and actually quite often, I talk to people who teach something, and that's totally okay because we teach what we want to learn.
Yeah.
And so I always have to answer the question of, do I hustle to get Unhustle going?
Yeah. That's a big
And
one.
because it can show up real easy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Do you have moments where you notice almost like trigger points where you go, oh, I need to be aware here because I can see the slippery slope back into the way
sure.
that do
Yeah, I
you?
walk away immediately and go out for a
Yeah.
hike with the dog. I mean,
Nice.
I have a program, and I told them, like, I had a really busy week, so I spent a lot of time outside of my office.
Yeah. That's great.
Because
Yeah.
it's the only time I can think and prioritize. So when I have, 20 things and they're all good things, I can't do all 20 things. I
Yeah.
can only do one or two. So I have to walk away and say, what's what's the most important thing right now? What can I
Yeah.
focus my time and energy on? Let's go do it and then focus on the next.
Yeah. Yeah. So valuable. It's incredible. I was going to ask, what's the projected launch date of book?
Yeah, I'm planning on August 10th.
August 10th. Okay. Wonderful. I can't wait. Make sure you send it my way, then I'll blast it out to my community because I think it's a really important book in the world. Yeah.
Yes, I'll put you on the list.
Awesome. We'll share with everyone. I know I have unhustle.com down here. So share with everyone best places to find you.
Yeah, unhustle.com is the website, and they can find everything from there. All the social media is under Unhustle as well.
Okay. And if they want to join your community, they would go there to find that information for that.
Yeah, just go to unhustle.com and you'll find a link to it from there. And I have a podcast too called the Unhustle Podcast.
Nice. I don't think I knew that. That's great. Oh, so wonderful. Okay.
I have to have you on it.
Yes, I would love it. I'm sure we'd have an incredible conversation again. All right. Thank you for being here. Wonderful to have you. Everyone, be sure to go to unhustle.com. Lots of great resources, podcasts, book coming out, community. And, to me, this is one of the most important conversations because you all know I talked to you about manifestation, and manifestation is all about making real out in your outer world what's going on within. So if within you're freaked out and you're over fatigued and you're overworked and you feel stuck and you feel exhausted and you're on the brink of burnout, you're going to actually have to work more to attract things your way because your energy is off. So you want to balance your energy by taking care of yourself. And to me, this Unhustle movement philosophy is incredible. So definitely follow Milena. Thank you so much again for being here. And thank you all for being here. I will be back next week. I hope you all have an incredible, fantastic, flowing, easy, joyful week. Until then, NFA money making high fives.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.